Be so good they can't ignore you. Be so good they can't ignore you. It's a very famous quote from Steve Martin, obviously the comedian, brilliant comedian and stand-up comedy icon and sketch comedy on Silent Live icon and all these things. And that's his advice as to anybody who's getting started. And I think this is a universal piece of advice because if you are somebody who has ever tried to do something and get noticed and put your work out there, it's not an easy thing. And it's harder and harder because through the wonder that is technology, the thing that gives you the opportunity to broadcast your message and your art or whatever it is that you're broadcasting, everybody has that same ability. So it cuts both ways. I've got these wonderful distribution networks and channels, but so do so many other people. So it can be hard. And it's a noisy space. So how do you get your signal out there? How do you get a clear signal out there? And Steve Martin says you just need to keep going and keep going and keep improving and get so good they can't ignore you. I like the idea of becoming undeniable. And that simply means that you are so compelling, that the case for you is so clear and so strong that nobody can reasonably question or reject you. It's about having an impact that is so clear, it's so obvious, and so powerful that people must acknowledge you, your presence, your skill, whatever it is that you are delivering on. Now, this against the backdrop of what's going on with the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, and Elon Musk, and going through and trying to get collectively, the American people's, our arms around what's going on with spending of our tax dollars, the allocation of our tax dollars, and what's going on with the federal bureaucracy and federal employees. And I've just been thinking a lot about it and thinking about the danger of apathy within any human system, within any kind of an organization, and certainly within the federal government. When you're employing millions of people, I don't know how many federal employees there are. It must be millions of people. I'm guessing, I know that it's the largest organization ever in the face of human history. So it must be millions of people. And unfortunately, every organization, every human organization and system is constantly evolving. So it's either you're moving in a direction of growth or you're moving in a direction of stagnation/decay. In life, you are either a river or you are a swamp. And swamp is that decay. It's dead. It's stagnant. It's stale. It's dead. It's dying. It's death. Rivers, on the other hand, life-giving, majestic, beautiful, powerful, always moving. We want to be rivers. Don't you want to be a river? You don't want to be a swamp, do you? Of course you don't. You listen to the podcast. You are 100% a river. So you want to become so good that they can't ignore you. You're not signed up for some employment program where you're just trying to cash a check. No, you are doing your part by doing your best. And that's what it means to be so good that they can't ignore you. That's what it means to be undeniable, to continue to strive and become the best possible version of yourself, to understand what standard you hold yourself to, and then hold yourself to that standard. Be a self-manager, exercise personal accountability and responsibility. What's so hard about that? Well, it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to hold yourself accountable. It's not easy to hold other people accountable. It's not easy to be held accountable. But if we were all just doing our best and doing our jobs and putting our best foot forward and doing that consistently, what a wonderful world it would be. So, have to have talent. So you constantly must be refining and examining your skill set. What are you capable of doing? And talent, I'm not talking about necessarily natural talent. I hope you have it. I'm glad that you do. It's kind of like your level of intelligence. I don't know that you can bump that up too much higher. You probably dumb yourself down quite a bit. But just how much are you practicing your craft? How much are you sharpening your saw in whatever endeavor? If it's stand-up comedy, if you're trying to be the best mom or dad in the world, if you are trying to be the best postal worker in the world, God bless you. Whatever. Commit to mastery. Commit to constant improvement. Commit to personal development. Make sure that you're telling the truth. Having facts, evidence that make your point impossible to refute. So live your life in a way that it is evidence of who you are and the impact that you're having. Being undeniable means you have to have a high character. Living authentically you and consistently showing up in that way, people will respect you, even if they don't agree with you. I know that there's a lot of people that I don't necessarily agree with or even like, but I recognize that they're showing up and they're doing their best and they're showing up and they're going hard. I think that that's great. So it's not that you're simply standing there demanding that people pay attention to you. It's not that you're waiting around to be picked. It's the opposite. It's about busting your butt, working hard, and earning it. Doing that day in and day out, and success will become inevitable. It's the hockey stick. There are so few overnight successes. If there's any, they're fleeting. It's like winning the lottery. You're rich for a minute, then you're bankrupt a couple years later. Being so good they can't ignore you is going to look like this. Steady, 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 steady. And then all of a sudden, boom, extreme growth. Think about laying a hockey stick down so that it's flat, flat, flat. And then when you come to the actual curve of the stick, the blade of the stick. Oof, wasn't sure if I was going to pull that term out. When you get to the blade of the stick, that's where everything takes off. That's where you're recognized. So that's not easy. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of toiling and a lot of early mornings / late nights and doing so quietly. It's going to be demanding that you struggle and toil and work your butt off in silence, in obscurity. Just you and your loved ones, of course. Before everybody else will say, hey, look at that guy. Look at that gal. They're undeniable. They're so good, you can't ignore you anymore. Steve Martin. It's powerful. It's the idea of being so good that they can't ignore you and becoming undeniable. It speaks to the power of developing mastery in whatever arena or field that you're choosing to pursue. Medicine, science, whatever, human resources, sales. It's excellence. It's holding yourself to a standard. It's having that presence. And it's not just chasing people's attention for the sake of chasing attention. I mean, we're screwing that up all the time. When kids these days, their number one career goal is to be an influencer. Well, that's not necessarily earned attention. That's like being famous for the sake of being famous, which is the problem. I want you to be so skilled, so valuable, so useful, so consistent that people have no choice but to take notice. Like, look at this guy, look at this gal, they're killing it. So Steve Martin's quote, I mean, it could be career advice for creative fields, but I think it's anything. It's really anything. It's in any endeavor in life. Being so good that you can't ignore. Just rise to the top. Be the best that you can be. Commit to that. And then once you do that, act unapologetically. This is not an easy thing. It's not easy to go through life unapologetically, to let your freak flag fly. Say, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to do business. This is what you can expect from me. And then do that. Show up with confidence. Show up with authenticity. without looking for approval or looking for somebody to tap you on the head and say it's your turn, obviously, so long as you're not running people over and harming you. But that's what it's all about. It's all about owning your choices and making decisions that are based on what you believe to be most important, what you believe matters, also known as what your values are, and not fearing what people's judgment will be. Now, we're coming out of a time, such a crappy time, such a garbage time with cancel culture and people scouring through your past to find the utterance of one word or phrase or whatever and then ruining your life over it. So, which obviously prevented people from doing so unapologetically, from living life authentically on their terms. But I feel like we're past that. It's about not shrinking yourself, making yourself small. Don't downplay what you're good at. Don't downplay what it is that you want or your ambitions just to make other people feel comfortable. Stand for what you believe in. Talk about what you believe to be true. And when you do that, other people will be inspired by it. We can now point to really not that many people in our culture who have done that over the past 5 years. And we should all be eternally grateful to those people who did it, who took the arrows, took the slings and the arrows, and kept moving, knowing that what they're talking about was good, just, and the correct thing. And then it's managing yourself because it's not easy. What I'm talking about requires the ability to be a self-manager because you're charting your own course, you're making your own way in the world, and odds are a lot of the people that you are around are not going to necessarily understand that because it's just not the path that they chose. It's not good or bad. That's just going to be the reality. So we have to be able to manage ourselves. Something I've known for a long time, but for a variety of reasons, have been unable to express it as succinctly and accurately and articulately as Roger Federer just did. Perhaps you've seen this clip. It was at some kind of a commencement, but he was talking about how Roger Federer is a tennis player. For those of you who didn't know that, shame on you. He talked about how, and Roger Federer is considered by many to be the best tennis player ever. He's certainly in the conversation, top five. There's no doubt about that. But he's won, or over the course of his career, thousands of matches. He won over 80% of those matches. Incredible. But out of all of those matches, he only won 54% of the points. Only won 54% of the points. That's interesting, isn't it? You probably would have guessed he won a lot more than that. But that's the competitive waters that Roger was swimming in. Everybody's about the same level, about the same skill level. But there's something different about the top performers in every field. You have to be able to act appropriately. So he talked about how the point that you're playing is the most important thing. Here and now, this point right now is the most important thing. But as soon as that's over, whether you won, whether you lost, doesn't matter. You got to be able to move on to the next point. Again, regardless of how the previous one went. On to the next one, on to the next one. It's regulating your emotions. So we all have the emotions. It's what we do with them that's going to determine or dictate whether or not we're winning 54% of our points or losing or winning 46%. It's very, 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 very small margins of errors. So regulating your emotions, being a good steward of your thinking, what you're letting into your head, how you're actually behaving. I think and talk a lot about our most valuable resources, our MVRs, which are time, attention, energy, and money. These are valuable because they're finite. Because they're finite, that's why they are of value. And I believe the entire game, getting what you want out of life, is knowing what matters. Knowing what matters for your family, for your community, for your work, your finances, for your well-being, your personal development, for your peace of mind. Understanding what is most important in each one of those areas, and then knowing what must be done in service of those things that matters, and then actually doing them consistently. And I'm not some kind of an Infinity War hustle porn kind of guy that says you got to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Quite the opposite. And it's not a game of perfect. I don't want you to be 100% perfect with every decision you make all the time. But if you can get to the point where you're making all of your decisions 80% correctly, and 20%, you're a little bit more loosey-goosey. It's okay to screw those up. Think about it in the context of your diet. 80% of what you ate was on point and aligned with what you're supposed to be eating. You could probably screw off for about 20%. And you're going to be okay. But if you switch that, you're not going to be okay. You're not going to get what you want. You will not be so good that you are undeniable. Be so good they can't ignore you. Be undeniable. Act unapologetically. Have a standard. Know what matters to you. Live that standard. Manage yourself. Become ungovernable. Governable. I think that that's what it's all about. What it's really all about is do your part by doing your best.